This Kirblog was suggested by Lava Ring X. If you'd like to suggest topics for videos like these, and if you want to hear me record them in my community Discord server before they release, consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/Kirbifer. This Kirblog is about RPGs and my favorite moments from each of them. So when I got this topic picked for the monthly Kirblog, I remembered that earlier this year I did one that was called What an RPG Means to Me. And I wanted to make sure that this was not encroaching on the exact same territory. But I would recommend actually listening to that one if you haven't. I actually did as sort of preparation before diving into this one specifically because that topic in particular was more about just my feelings on the genre as a whole, but this one I decided to make into a top 10 specifically because I wanted to give some little anecdotes about each of my favorite RPGs. And in this case, I've also I decided as a couple rules. I'm only picking one game per series. I've made one exception. I have two different Mega Man RPGs, probably to no one's surprise considering it's me, but they're completely different genres in that sense, so I didn't feel that was too much of like an unfair thing to do. So, but otherwise, I've primarily gone with games that I've actually played, unlike in the other topic where I talked about a lot of games that I hadn't personally played myself. I wanted to focus on stuff that I had a hands-on experience with as much as possible, with one exception, but I'll get to that. And I also did not limit myself necessarily to, a particular kind of RPG. I've covered everything from turn-based to strategy to, 3D adventure, all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of covered multiple bases with this list. I thought that would make for a more interesting list. And the other thing is, truthfully, I don't think I've actually played 10 of that genre or of any kind of like particular subgenre of different game in total. So I figured that's that would make the most sense to go with. So, and one more thing, like with my previous top 10 lists, these are not in order from like least favorite to most favorite, anything like that. I don't find myself enjoying doing top 10 lists that way. These are just the 10 of my favorite RPGs. I'm putting them, I can't say in no particular order, because like with the other ones, I'm putting them in chronological order from beginning of my life to most recent. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, all right. So getting this out of the way because, once again, to no one's surprise, Mario RPG is first on here. I have told, I think, every conceivable story I could ever tell about my experience with this game at this point. There's very little left that I can say about it between, many past Kirblogs, multiple playthroughs of the game, interviews, everything, you can possibly imagine. But, and in fact, it probably is my favorite video game of all time in all likelihood, just because of my like very, very deep-seated attachment to it. But I'll talk about two particular things because what I'm going to be doing is giving sort of a little mini anecdote story about each of these games in this list. So first of all, I've tried to kind of trace back this as much as I possibly can. For many years, which that would be the origin of my obsession with elemental powers, because people that know my work know that that's something that I've done with my characters. Particularly, this is much more the case with Balancing Act, but it is also present somewhat in Tome and stuff like that. I kept trying to, because I know it wasn't Pokemon, surprisingly, even though that was probably a big thing that got people loving that. And then, like Avatar a few years after that or whatever. But I was trying to think of if there was anything else previous to Pokemon kind of hitting the scene that would have been the big thing that got me to love. And I guess more specifically, Ice for myself personally, because if people don't know this, and it's the reason why my sort of self-insert character from Balancing Act is an ice elemental. Similar thing, like that element in particular is my favorite. And I think if I trace it back, I believe that it was Super Mario RPG and the elemental spells that the character. And I guess when I try to even think even more specifically than that, I think it was the secret battle against Kulex and the 4 gems. The 4 elemental crystals. I think that was specifically, and just seeing this like barrage of, fire, earth, wind, and water attacks, that were also covering, other sort of like sub elements in between and everything, electricity and ice and stuff like that. And in fact, like the technique Ice Rock, which I think is only used by the water crystal in the entire game. I think that that in particular, I think that even there was a point where I almost called my character Frost. I think that Ice Rock was going to be the last name that character would have had at one point before I went with Frost. So I always found, just the visual spectacle of a lot of those attacks. And it's funny because now to learn that a bunch of those were animated by Jiro Mifune, who I've had the great pleasure of getting to talk with a little bit over Twitter before he healthily left the site, like many people are doing right now. And I always found those incredibly cool, and I think that then that sort of opened my eye up to. I was just talking to somebody recently about, I rented the game Quest 64 on a whim just because I remember reading a thing in Nintendo Power about it. By the way, absolutely not one of my favorite RPGs because that game is dog shit. Although I've heard that somebody's made like a mod that makes the game actually somewhat playable, I guess. But I remember reading in an issue of Nintendo Power magazine, there was like a list of all the different elemental attacks you could use based on, water, fire, air, earth. And I just thought that, like, even just reading up on what those were just looked so cool. And I'm like, oh, I want to play this game just for that. And I was supremely disappointed. But Pokemon certainly improved that later on. So yeah, so that's one thing I don't think I've talked much about. And I will also say, because I would sort of loop the remake into the original as counting as the same sort of thing, more or less. If I hadn't said this and made this clear already, I think that the remake was like pretty much perfect. It could see everything I would have asked for and more. The newly animated cutscenes were all stunning. The visual flares that they added to stuff, the little tweaks that they made for the most part. Only thing I didn't necessarily love all of the names that they shifted around. I understand why Mac is no longer probably able to be called that anymore. I did like Spiritovich, some of the other ones here and there, but and the post game content in particular. Like I had always thought about like, oh man, like, if I were in the position of something like that, I think I'd even talked about, shortly before the remake was, announced, I remember, talking about like, oh, what if they were to remake that game? What if they remade it as a Mario and Luigi game specifically, right? Like if you had the two of them always there as the party members, and then like the other characters that join you, like you get to do, like Chrono Trigger, wink wink, style, like team attacks between two different characters that you can combine, different combinations of them with over the course of that time and have Luigi as the 6th party member, basically. I remember thinking about that before, and then, by extension to, like what other extra stuff would I add? What other new additional things would I have added? I loved the rematches against all the bosses that were left over that were not part of the Smithy gang. I thought they were all very clever and unique and very puzzle solving, almost kind of like kind of peering into Paper Mario that would have come next. I think that was a great idea. The only thing that I would have really, really loved to have added if this were possible, I think it would have been super cool if when you refight Smithy again after doing all the post-game content, if they would have given Smithy some kind of like additional like form, like another certain game on this list apparently did with its remake, speaking of which. I would have dug the crap out of that. I can't complain because everything that they added was so good that like I can't ask for more. But yeah, that was that whole entire remake experience was incredible, and I hope that an entire new generation of people get to experience one of my favorite RPGs and what is probably my favorite video game of all time. So Nonetheless, number two is, and this is probably also of no surprise, but I wonder, what people would think of this necessarily. But Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. I know it's a very, very, very stereotypical choice, but as I mentioned on my other RPG Kirblog from earlier this year, I've actually not played a ton of Zeldas. Real quick, just to refresh, I could never even get very far in the original NES Zelda. I was terrible at it and traded my copy of it for a copy of Mega Man 2 on NES. Sorry, please don't crucify me. I played through the good majority of Majora's Mask, excuse me, and never got to finish it, unfortunately, just due to some circumstances. I did really, really like it. I think that it's a more unique and interesting game than Ocarina, but I do like Ocarina more. And I also love the manga adaptation of it, the 2 volume, I believe it's 2 volumes, Zelda manga, which I think I own that. That might be back home in New York somewhere. And I started Twilight Princess. I love the aesthetic and the world and the story and the characters, but unfortunately I never continued playing it. And I feel the worst about, I was gifted a copy of Skyward Sword, literally went out and got the Wii Motion Plus Wiimote and everything. And then I never actually played it. So I'm a really crappy Zelda fan. Unfortunately, I'm very biz casual. I've watched playthroughs of so many of them, and I am an appreciator of them from afar. And I'm sure I'll go see the live action movie. I hope it will turn out well. But yeah, Ocarina is the one game that I actually have like a particular sort of emotional attachment to. A couple little things about that. I think I've talked about this before too, but I was a big collector of player's guides back when I was a kid. Particularly the not so much the Prima guides. I know that they're kind of like the dominating force in the player's guide writing world, and big ups to them for sure. But I was a big fan in particular of the Nintendo Power published player's guides that they did specifically for like the first party Nintendo games. I thought that the quality of those were just so impressive. And a very cool thing that I loved about Ocarina of Time's player's guide was that it was written like as if it was like a novel. Like all of the actual stuff that was happening in it was illustrated and written as if it was like in the form of a story. So like, for example, like, and then Link journeyed across Lake Hylia and entered the water temple, using his metal boots to sink down and enter through the entrance, but like stuff like that. I'm just pulling that example out of my ass, but I always thought that was, at first as a kid, I think I found that kind of confusing and like a little weird, and now I look back and I'm like, no, actually that was a brilliant, really, really cool idea. I don't know if they ever did that again for any future Zelda games or anything, but I respect that a lot as a creative choice to do that with that guide, especially because I'm sure they knew that it was, it was a special one and it was such a big deal, such a highly anticipated game. What I will also say, a little weird specific story about Zelda, and once again, I don't know exactly why this of all, but well, no. I know that it was specifically because of the boss that came with it. That I had a big obsession with the water temple, which is so ironic because this was years before I learned from the internet that it is, the most reviled temple of that game, kind of collectively by fans, which I guess maybe I didn't have that experience with it necessarily because I was, reading a player's guide that was step by step taking me through each of the things that I had to do. So that probably helped a little bit in terms of it, not being any more or less difficult than any other games I was playing at the time, or any other dungeons at least I was going through in that game specifically. But yeah, for some reason I really did like the aesthetic of the water temple and thought it was super cool looking. But particularly I really loved the boss of that, Morpha, the like kind of little eyeball amoeba thing that controls the like goopy water, and you fight this sort of like tentacle thing jumping over the little platforms in the pool. I found that boss like really, really cool for some reason. And so, funnily enough, speaking of Balancing Act again, in a really, really ancient, like primordial version of Balancing Act, Morpha, which I then kind of made slowly but surely, I tried to make into like a sort of original character do not steal version of it. That as like a renegade sort of like water god that had like its eye, stabbed out and then like became this like water creature or whatever. Like I ripped off Morpha and made it into like a character in an ancient version of Balancing Act because I just thought it looked really cool. I think that also might have even been the first one of the early fascinations I had with like kind of like morphological like slime like characters, because obviously that was also before Game Craze existed and the slime siblings from Tome and all that sort of yeah. But I couldn't tell you really why like it just like hit me in a certain way. Like, it's just cool, this boss and all this temple and everything. And I literally even had like some sub story where like the local beach that was around the corner from where I lived for many years of my life as a kid in Long Island, I like imagined that the water temple was like hidden underneath that beach somewhere, like beneath the waves or something. I don't know. It was very strange. My mind worked in strange ways, but yeah, that's the one Zelda game that I do have a legitimate attachment to. I will also say, I think that the 3DS version, at least until they perhaps inevitably maybe remake Ocarina of Time, with like beautiful graphics or something, I find that the 3DS port of the game is the superior version of Ocarina of Time, like absolutely without question, for the single solitary reason, more than anything else, of making the boots into items that you can equip onto your C buttons. That alone, oh dear God, because going through like any temple where you need to switch to the iron boots or the flying boots or whatever, the floaty ones, pain in the ass to pause, to switch, etc. It's so aggravating. So yeah, maybe I don't know if we'll ever actually get like, or if anything, maybe when the new next Nintendo console comes out, maybe I don't know, maybe we'll get we'll get like a 3DS port. If they start porting like DS and 3DS games onto whatever like the virtual console equivalent is, maybe we'll get that at some point. Who knows? Number 3, quite fittingly, and once again, not surprising anybody, Mega Man Battle Network 3. Haha. I know I went back and forth on this probably when I was playing through all the Battle Network games a couple years ago, like replaying them all on the collection, or no, sorry, a year ago now. It's already been that long. Jesus. I'm sure I went back and forth on picking like what is my favorite one. Of if I had to like gun to my head, what's the choice of the 6 of them? I think it really is Battle Network 3. As evidenced by the fact that I went through and I 100%ed the game. It was the only one that I've done that with and gotten absolutely everything so I could fight the super boss. And speaking of which, I'll tell you, Base EXE was, of course, a tremendous influence as a character on me in many, many ways. I was quite emotionally affected by the video game version of his story specifically. I like the anime version a lot, and the manga version sort of like an alternative to the game, just kind of slightly changed a little bit. But the game version of him in particular, I remember really being affected by the most, and then that probably informed my love of him in the other ones. And I liked classic Base prior to that, but Base EXE, went on to be one of my favorites, sort of like, the edgy rival, clad in usually black armor of some kind type characters. And probably also, it's so funny because I think that so many people know of Base EXE because of how good his design is. Even people that aren't Mega Man fans, let alone Mega Man Battle Network fans, like they all know that design so well. He looks just so great, and that mysterious, like the big cloak and everything, which, has also, even before that, obviously, has been a staple for other sort of mysterious characters in things in other anime and games prior to Base EXE. But certainly ones that came after, I wouldn't be surprised if that was a bit of an influence too. Giga from Tome, of course, kind of ganked that and everything. And in fact, just Base in general was a huge influence on a lot of creative decisions that I made with TTA and then eventually Tome 2011 and everything. And I think I've probably talked about this at some point somewhere before too, and there's like 1 or 2 photos that anyone can find of this, but I did actually cosplay Base EXE at the first big convention that I ever went to, which was Otakon 2005 in Baltimore. And that was in searing, disgusting summer heat in Maryland, and I was dying underneath that black armor and the poncho. Just good lord. But yeah, so once again, like with Mario RPG, I've said so much about Battle Network, but I'll harp on base a little bit when it comes to that. And the next one, this is my cheat of having two different RPGs from the same franchise. But number 4 is Mega Man Legends 2. It's so frustrating to me that like it's hard for me to actually recommend the Mega Man Legends series to people, because most of these games I can say play them. Like, you will love them. They're amazing. They're fantastic. Mega Man Legends, I would actually go so far as to say they're not actually that fun to play. I think that they are very, very janky. I think that they're very of their time. Like, we're still trying to figure out how to do 3D stuff. The tank controls and even the dungeons are not all that, inspired or unique or whatever. They're mostly just corridors. I think that the ideas and the concepts of Legends, and the style of it and the mysteriousness of it, that was more of what I kind of enjoyed, more than actually playing the games, which is why I hate to say that. Like, as much, well, and also plus it's the 2 games, then they end off on a cliffhanger. I've never actually tried Misadventures of Tron Bonne, so I'm a fake Legends fan, I know. But yeah, with it only ending after 2 games, it's like, well, what is there really to recommend for people? 2 very janky, early 3D games, and then also, like, that's it. And then an ending that goes nowhere, unfortunately. So yeah, sad to say it's not something that I guess I have sort of complicated feelings about Legends, but without getting into the negative, the positive that I'll share is that I literally hunted down a PS1 specifically to play this game. I had played through Legends 1, the N64, much inferior version of it, on the N64 at the time. I think I rented it maybe 2 or 3 times from Blockbuster over and over. And I actually don't know. I think I do. I can't remember if I own Mega Man Legends on N64 or not. I can't quite remember. But oh no, yes, I did. I bought it from somebody when I lived out here. Actually, that when they were selling a bunch of their old games and shit. But I originally, when I was playing Legends 2, I hunted down a PS1 specifically to play that game. I think that was probably one of the biggest games of all. Even though like I just have a lot of affinity for all N64 and PS1 games, I think that one in particular made me love low poly. Legends 2 and the just how stunning they made it look, and how good the character expressions are, how well they like kind of filmed and shot the cutscenes, the way that they like positioned the camera, the way that they had like the mouth movements kind of like grafted onto the characters' faces in a way that made it look like it was an actual anime and everything. It did a really good. I said this in the RPG Kirblog from a while back about how like RPGs feel the most like you're playing through like an animated series. Legends 2 succeeded highly in making it feel like I was playing through a cool new Mega Man anime that I hadn't experienced before, And I still go back once in a while and I watch through like compilations of even just like the cutscenes of that game, which I guess is kind of a more enjoyable way for me to experience it. And who knows, maybe I'll play through the first 2 games again, like properly from start to finish, sometime. It's been a long time since I've actually played them myself, but yeah, I don't know. But it's mostly the aesthetic, the characters, the world, the music. It was kind of like the sum of its parts that get me to look past its glaring flaws of not actually being that fun to play, unfortunately. And I think also Trigger, Mega Man Trigger in particular, was also a big design influence on a lot of my characters and everything, because I think that he has the best Mega Man design of all the different ones of just Mega Man himself. I think that he's probably my favorite, which is saying something because I love most of them, but I don't know, he feels extra special and extra cool to me, and I miss Legends. I don't know. Maybe there's a possibility in the future with the Mega Man resurgence. Who knows? Maybe we'll still have a shot of getting Legends 3 someday. But with Inafune gone from Capcom, I don't know how likely that ever could be. Who knows? I hope that Mega Man has a future at all after the success of 11 and the Battle Network collection and everything. So, nonetheless. All right, number 5. Long overdue in my life, dear God Almighty, I wish I played this game originally when it was on the Super Nintendo and the PS1. But Chrono Trigger, I played the DS version of this game at long, long last. I believe it was in the early 2010s, I think. I think it might have been like just after I graduated college, maybe 2011, 2012 or something. Can't remember. But what an amazing like masterpiece of a game! Absolutely. I have said this before. Certainly, I was an appreciator of afar of the character designs alone, which was all I knew of Chrono Trigger because I had seen art of the characters, all over different gaming magazines and things. Of course, I knew that it was Akira Toriyama. Rest in peace. His work, of course, and I liked the just even the design of Chrono alone, which of course is so ironic because then we get red-haired Super Saiyan God 15, 20 years later or whatever it was, and 25 more like even. Good lord. I of course Alpha from Tome was very heavily influenced by his design with the blue clothing as well. Just was very striking to me and everything, and I went in completely blind otherwise. I had very, very little knowledge of the specifics of Chrono Trigger. I think other than just knowing who like the party member characters were, and even then, like not much about them. So going in blind, and then once I beat the entire main story, and got only one of God knows how many endings, and I from what I was told, I think they mentioned it was like one of the like not as good endings. It was I think it's Chrono and Marl. They like go into a hot air balloon and like look over, just the whole planet and kind of like look back on the places they've been to over across time, and everything. While the ending credits theme played and everything. I think I remember somebody telling me that was like one of the like not as good endings. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not 100% sure. I've actually never gone and looked up like what all of the different endings are. I know there's some weird ones where like there's one I think where like you stay in prehistory and or something like that, and there's like monkeys everywhere. I think that's one of them. I think that there's also another where like you meet like the actual developers that made the game, like they just show up as little sprites or whatever. I vaguely remember seeing something about that. I'd love to replay that game again at some point. I know it's on Steam as well, so that would be one worth streaming for sure. That'd be a lot of fun. But I think that game is an absolute masterpiece. Speaking of remakes or sequels or whatever, I don't know. We're living in an era where we're getting so many of these, like all the Dragon Quest remakes, the Live Alive remake, hint, hint, wink, wink, and Octopath, these like Square Enix games with the 2D sprites in a 3D world and everything. I know that probably so many people would love to see a Chrono Trigger remake in that style. I know there are some kind of licensing issues or something, maybe. I don't know. I know that it was kind of a miracle that the Live Alive one happened. So, I mean, never say never. It's certainly humanly possible to happen. And I would love to. I actually have this dream, and this is my voiceover nerd side of me talking here. I would love to see if they ever do a Chrono Trigger remake that in the style of like Live Alive and all that. I would love to see I would love to hear half actors from the UK and half actors from the US, half Dragon Quest actors and half Dragon Ball actors. I would really, because when I played Chrono Trigger, I could only imagine, and I'll rattle off just a couple of these in case people care. I always imagined nothing but basically, Funimation, Dragon Ball Z actors, specifically as the characters because of the way that they looked. And for the most part, I kind of went with like people that were sort of like semi-equivalents of, whatever their character looked like. So like, for example, Chrono, he didn't speak, but I just heard Eric Vale doing, fight noises because Chrono's kind of like Trunks a little bit. Marl, I heard Laura Bailey because she looked like quite a few different characters Laura Bailey had played throughout Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z. Luca, I heard Brina Palencia because of Arale, because the purple hair and the glasses. Frog, I heard Justin Cook because he played a character named Fraug in the Otherworld tournament. So I heard him doing kind of like a Shakespearean thing. Oh, God. Robo, I heard Chuck Huber because Android 17, and also the robot that Gohan is like stuck underground within that one filler episode. Who else? Oh, God. Ayla. The cave woman, I heard Meredith McCoy because she looks kind of like launched Android 18-ish with the blonde hair and everything. And oh dear God, I know I'm missing somebody else unless I think it's just Magus. Is Magus the last one? I heard Kent Williams because he looks kind of like an evil Kibito Kai. So those are a few, but it was all that was pretty much the entire thing. Is that it was just all other Dragon Ball actors, which I know that that's probably not very likely to happen in the first place. I'm sure that they'll probably just do it in the UK if that ever happens, because that seems to be the pattern with these recent Square Enix games. But who knows? Who knows? I hope that does happen at all someday, because that'd be great. But I'm glad that it is also easily accessible, because there's so many different versions of it that you can get at this point. So next up, and I've talked a lot about this one, but I really do hold true to this. Kingdom Hearts 3. I legitimately still think it's one of, if not the best Kingdom Hearts game. I talked quite extensively about Kingdom Hearts 3 already in Kirblogs that I was kind of recording at the time that I was playing through it. So I'll just recommend go back and listen to those. But one thing that I'm pretty sure I never talked about back when I was playing them is I never talked about the DLC, which I think was called like Remind. And I thought that the DLC was pretty cool, but I will mention I kind of wish there were a lot of things. And no, actually, no, not even everything about it. I wish that it was just the way that the base game was in the first place. I think that most of the stuff that was added and like at all, okay, with the exception of the super bosses, which by the way could not beat a single one of them. I literally couldn't even beat. I think that the young Ben Diskin Xehanort was like the easiest one, if I'm not mistaken. Literally couldn't even figure out how to beat him. It was just impossible. So I just kind of gave up on that, and I just watched all of the fights on YouTube and the Yozora fight and everything. So that stuff I get, but the actual new, the stuff that they added to expand upon the original ending of Kingdom Hearts 3, like the last kind of final battle in the Keyblade graveyard and everything. The stuff that happens in the DLC, I actually kind of just wish that happened in the first place. Even down to, admittedly, the actor, I feel so bad because I know he passed away, but the actor that they cast as Xehanort, as Old Man Xehanort, who I did not feel was the greatest casting choice to take over for Leonard Nimoy. Like, sorry. Christopher Lloyd, I felt, was a much better fit and a much better match as well. So I kind of wish that he was the one that just did it from the beginning. Like, he was, I felt like the person they should have just cast to take over the part from the start, to be honest. But also the extra stuff with like Mickey fighting back, and then biggest of all, Kairi fighting alongside you in the final battle against Master Xehanort. All that stuff, I'm like, this should have just been the base game, honestly. This should have just been what they did from the beginning and not DLC, because this is just a better interpretation of what ultimately happened, to be honest. So that was a little bit disappointing that it wasn't just there, but I did still enjoy the content itself, and now we, of course, have the long wait until 4, which I am still, excited to see, however long it takes for them to do it. But, yeah, I hold to it, and I've ranted and raved so much already, but I really do legitimately think that 3 is the best Kingdom Hearts game on all aspects. Gameplay, story, level design, abilities, graphics, animation, music. It's just so good. I really do think it covers everything, every aspect you could possibly think of, the best of any in the series. It's not to say that the others aren't good too, but I really do hold to it. I think that they improved everything from the previous ones the most when it comes to 3. All right, next up, number 7. This one is a little bit of a cheat, but it has been that impactful on me, legit, is Deltarune. I Love Undertale. Love Undertale. Toby's a genius. It was highly influential on me. I've played through it, I think, at least like maybe 4 times. And everything about it is brilliant. But there is something about Deltarune that I absolutely adore in a way that is different. And I think when I'm really honest with myself, which is why it's on this list, that I love more than Undertale. And that's really saying something because they are both absolutely incredible. There's something specifically, and you know what? It's funny. It's not even the gameplay because I do love the battle system of Deltarune, but I think it is the world, the traveling party, the lore, it's all this other stuff, the story side of it. Even though we've only experienced the first 2 chapters of 7 of this experience so far, dear God, it's just incredible. I have like fallen in love with Chris and Ralze and Susie and Lancer as well. I count him as kind of the fourth party member in a certain sense. Yeah, I have been absolutely enraptured playing through. And a big thing, this is something that's going to start affecting some of these later choices. I played through Deltarune Chapter 2 with my group of Discord friends when it was first released. The 4 of us played through it. I was the one controlling it, and we went through. We did voices and everything, and we explored as much stuff as possible. Sad to say, I'm really a fake fan because this is so ironic because I did the whole what's it called? I did the entire video of voicing him and everything, but I could not beat Spamton. I also couldn't even. I missed Jevil, entirely missed Jevil, by the way, but. I was way into the secret boss stuff. I thought that was so cool. That's why I did my little video and everything in the first place. But yeah, I had another friend of mine beat it and record the footage for me in the first place. So that was what I had, in terms of a source of actually footage to use and everything. But yeah. I am so absolutely enraptured and locked in by, however long it's going to take him and his team to go through and finish the rest of these. I'm so excited to see where the story goes. I'm so excited to see like how the previous Undertale characters are going to continue to to appear like what in whatever way ceremoniously or even unceremoniously that Sans and Papyrus and any of the others are going to actually show up and get to do anything in the future is going to be a riot. I'm so intrigued to see what other themed worlds that will be created out of the town or otherwise that they can make into different things. Because we've had the toy game world and we've had the cyber world and everything. It looks like we're getting kind of like a TV based sort of world in the next bit, which is really creative. So the mystery of that is super cool and kind of how some of these things are going to be solved over time. I have a theory that because I've seen even though I've beat them myself, I've seen the battles between Jevil and Spamton all the way through, and I think that by collecting those little glass shards, from defeating each of them, each of these super bosses, I'm thinking that there's going to be some kind of special crazy thing at the very, very end if you beat all of them. Maybe even some kind of rematch with Sans or something. I don't know. But I'm really curious to see, if you go through all of them, okay, what is the reward going to be in the end for beating all the super bosses across each of the chapters? What is the ultimate reward that's going to happen as a result of that, basically. So yeah, I know that it's a little bit of a cheat because it's an incomplete game at this point, at the time that I'm recording this, but it made such an impact on me and I loved it so much that I still count it as one of my top 10 for sure, and I'm in it for the long haul, absolutely 100%. So number 8, Live Alive. For the most part, I've also kind of said already what I can say about it when I played it, so I recommend going and checking out the playlist of me going through the entirety of the Live Alive remake. I was intrigued by this game for the first time when I saw. It's funny, kind of back to back with Deltarune after the whole Megalomania influence and everything. I remember first learning about it from the Did You Know Gaming deep dive video that they did, the Region Lot video that they did about it, and finding the idea of them making like an anthology style RPG across time. What I think Live Alive does amazingly is that it kind of like, in the way that I've said that RPGs are sort of like the ultimate genre of video game, and how like they make you feel like you're like living through a series and everything. Live Alive does this insane thing where it feels almost like it's like a game that encapsulates everything about life in general, like just everything. The fact that like it has all these like amazing morals and lessons, that like different things that are the same and different throughout time, and just the idea of like different types of heroism and different types of villainy that all go back to Odio and everything, in each of the different eight like sections of the timeline and everything. Just what a brilliant concept, and especially for back then, for when things with video games were as limited as they were. Like, Jesus Christ, the team at Square Enix, and it's so insane to think that it was the B team, the B team that did this, that were like, wow, like they went ahead and they like made this like Final Fantasy level like incredible game that like was underappreciated for the longest time, and I don't know how much more appreciated it is now. But the fact that now it's at least more accessible. I'm sure that I remember Wes actually telling me that he played through the original version on an emulator, the fan translation that was done, and it became like one of his most like one of his favorite games ever. He's also told me many times that Earthbound Mother 3 is his favorite RPG ever, and I've still yet to experience it. I want to. I'm stupidly holding out for a translation and an official one. Maybe I'll cave and just play it with the Clyde Mandolin translation someday. I don't know. But yeah, he spoke very highly of Live Alive as well. And to find out that a lot of the people that made it went on later to do Mario RPG was the most incredible thing to me. So to know that some of those same developers made, now two of my favorite, story experiences, let alone RPGs, let alone video games. I commend those guys. It's still amazing to me that like the like non-Final Fantasy team made just such like legendary masterpiece games and everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, Live Alive is a newie but a goodie, absolutely deserving of its place on here for me. Okay, number 9. I know I'm gonna get some shit for this one, but whatever. I think that once again, like with the Battle Network games, I had to pick one. Gun to my head, I think Pokemon Scarlet and Violet might be my favorite Pokemon game ever. And I get it. I understand the criticisms. I understand why people are not super happy with the glitches and whatever, but I loved living in that world for a week straight. It is not to say that I don't absolutely adore Heart Gold, Soul Silver, Black and White. I love the Pokemon series in general, but honest to Christ, glitches and all, I was in love with that game. Everything about it. I honestly like the whole region getting to. I'm not even an open world lover when it comes to video games. I don't even really like that type of game at all. But just going anywhere, catching Pokemon left and right, being friends with Arvin, Nimona, and oh my God, why am I blanking on her name? Good Lord, the Eevee girl. Jesus, I am a fake fan. Jesus Christ. I like the stories individually with them. Penny, that was what it was. Getting to know those characters individually and seeing how they developed, and then coming together for what is the greatest, absolutely bar none, the greatest finale to any Pokemon game. The final, like journey into the great crater of Paldea, the Area Zero place and everything. And like being able to do the gyms in any order, the fight the quote unquote evil team in any order, the Titan Pokemon, all that stuff. Like I just had the best time of my life, like for 5 or 6 days straight, getting up all day, playing through the game, literally only stopping for like to eat and shower and shit, and playing it multiplayer with 3 friends, and literally going through that. The only thing that was annoying to me, literally at all, was having to reset the game once in a while because of the lag. Everything else did not care at all. Did not care. I was so enamored by everything going on that I had the best time of my life. I was so enraptured. And again, there's other, I love, and I feel this way about, honestly, like most of the generations. There are new Pokemon that I think are amazingly clever, and new ones that I don't love that much, to be honest. And a lot of people, I think, made a big stink about that with this game in particular, but I realize that's the case with every game. There are cool new ones and kind of lame new ones. But every Pokemon, even the lamest Pokemon, is somebody's favorite Pokemon out there. Somebody in the world, that's their favorite. And I think that's pretty magical, to be honest. And added bonus, the DLC was, because I loved Sword and Shield as well. I that was a game that I needed at a bad time, and it was so relaxing to just live there and go in the wild area and just catch stuff and just chill out and everything. Loved getting to experience that, but I didn't get the DLC. I wasn't so in love with it that I needed to get the DLC, but the DLC for Scarlet and Violet, so good. Kieran and Carmine are great characters. I thought it was super clever. Instead of it just being like the Pokemon Yellow of, the third version, which I think that doing DLC as an equivalent of a Pokemon Yellow type thing is the better route to go, instead of just releasing a third game now, for sure. But oh my gosh, yeah, I love the teal mask stuff with going to Kitakami and everything. Like, that was a ton of fun. I love that they could let you go and just do it whenever you wanted and kind of come and go. And then having the Indigo disc, the stuff with the school and everything, having that be like you have to beat the main game first, and then the final journey back to Area Zero with the Terrapago stuff and everything. I thought that building that whole entire and the bonus stuff with Pecharunt as well, the whole entire like build up of that and like extending it into this big giant story and like this like lived in world, and then the Paradox Pokemon and everything. So cool. I really, really loved like everything that they built with that. Could they have improved upon it, and could they have fixed a lot of stuff? Yes, absolutely. I'm not denying that whatsoever, but what they did with it and the experience that I got out of what they released was insurmountably just an incredible, incredible time for me. And it's one that has legitimately topped my own like personal experience with any of the individual Pokemon games since then. And I feel like it was this ultimate lead up of all of the generations, the I think 8 generations that led up to it before that. And now, we've got ZA coming out, which I'm assuming will be kind of like a, like an Arceus type thing, perhaps. And then, maybe, whatever Gen 10 is going to be, we'll certainly see. But yeah, so, and for sure having an experience with my friends, in particular, like made it extra special. And so that said, on that same note, number 10 is also a bit of a cheat because I didn't actually play this game myself, but my experience with it, I feel as though I basically did because I was the living player's guide for it. Number 10, the last one on the list, is Omori. Little indie game by an artist named Omocat. Very Earthbound inspired. One of many, it's ironic that I don't have a Mother game on here, but I have 2 different Mother inspired games on here between Deltarune and Omori. But Omori was, I once again went in knowing absolutely nothing about it. The battle system to start with was a really clever thing where the type advantages are emotional states. There's very little I can say about this one because you really do have to experience it for yourself. It's not too long. Highly recommend it. I think it's pretty affordable too on Steam, and on Switch as well. The Switch version has some exclusive content and stuff. Really like effective at being disturbing and creepy with its like horror elements and stuff. which I don't play a lot of horror games, but the creepy themes in this that they managed to pull off with it are so cool. Like so many dark things that they, because I like dark stuff in RPGs when they work that in for sure. And yeah, all the characters were absolutely adorable, so relatable, so much fun. Like great group of 4 or 5 characters that you have in there. Technically 6, but I won't get too much into that. But funnily enough, so Toxic Soul, Michaela was the one playing through the game itself, and I was just basically over Discord screen share, seeing the game, and I was more or less serving as the player's guide. So anytime there was a battle and there needed to be any kind of secret strategy to overcoming it or whatever, I was the one kind of advising everything. And if we needed to go find some kind of item somewhere, I would go look up, maps. I would, try to sift carefully through completionist guides because she wanted to platinum the game and get all the achievements and everything, which was no easy. In fact, she still hasn't done that as of this recording. So, yeah. But that game, the story of it, honestly, it blew me away. I really don't want to say any more than that because I want anybody listening to this, please go pick it up. Omori, Omori. Go pick it up for yourself. It is an unforgettable, incredible experience. And the fact that we only played it just within this past year, and it absolutely shot up to being one of my favorite RPGs. The fact that a lot of new ones, the fact that it's half, I'm actually really happy about the fact that my list is half old ones and half newer ones from the last 5 or 6 years or so, and even more recently than that. So yeah, those are my top 10 favorite RPGs. Not ranked, but just in chronological order. And yeah, it's funny, for as many classic ones, I've never played Mother 3, I've never played most Final Fantasies, there's still a highly influential genre of game on me. But yeah, I'm curious to know in the comments, anybody that listens to this, if you have a top 10 list, and they can be ranked if you want. Let me know your favorite 10 RPGs as well. And once again, if you have suggestions for future Kirblog topics, please consider checking out my Patreon. Thanks to Karulu Stromboli and Lavering X and Violet Aragi, who are in the Discord server right now listening in. We're recording this a few days before it's officially posted on the channel. Thanks very much. And see you in the next one. Hope everybody's having a lovely holiday season as we kick off into Thanksgiving time if you're in America. I know it's a scary time for everybody right now. Please try to be with your loved ones and, appreciate anything that brings you joy as much as possible. I hope that this gave you a little bit of joy for about an hour. I didn't expect it to go this long, but thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks very much. Bye.